So, you know, a lot of people have been bugging out since this guy, the new regime, is taking power and has been creative in their expansion and trampling on what they refer to as U.S. liberties, if that ever existed the way that they say it. And they've also created a situation where a lot of the things that were put into play to stop the last administration from moving into a region by which all of the countries that were laid out in this thing that they did back in 97 called the Plan for a New American Century, in which they were talking about American imperialism and how it was supposed to be sanctioned. What a lot of people don't know is that the same 7 countries that this guy started to ban people from coming from are the same 7 countries that were listed in this manifesto, basically, that laid out how they was basically going to destroy or take over everything to establish one major pipeline route from Africa to Europe to the United States. So because different governments have that in their agenda plan, the gap between the rich and the poor is being used as the mainstay to ward off the underlying current of what's really going on. And what's really going on is what I talked about in the big debt, the EU big debt global reset, which is the dissolution of all of these international agreements that have kept the United States in an imperialistic position, but have also created another position by which pseudo United States representatives now are in a free-for-all. Yeah, in a free-for-all, because they want to create a situation by which they can't create a base for themselves to facilitate more power. So the excess of greed, the excess of fiscal acquisition, the fact that all kingdoms that, or republics, nations, and states that started after what they refer to as the Civil War were all based on empires of debt, meaning that at one point in history it was about establishing your national identity, expanding that national identity, and then consolidating the nationalistic view of the kingdom to expand to the empire, to the people who you either annex through treaty or by force, right? So once those empires were established, they have always been established. So when we look at China today, we're looking at the old Xiang or Han or Mongol or whatever dynasty that they manifested from, right? Going all the way back to what they call the dragon emperors of the sun, right? When we look at Japan and we see the Japanese flag now just white with the red star, it used to be red, right? White with the red star in the middle with the rays going out. That's called the Mikado, right? That's bringing you back to the ancient Shinto religion, right? Which is then bringing all of what used to be referred to as Manichaeism and Jainism and all of these cultures coalesced in Japan, right? So you see what I'm saying? So when we look at Russia, we're looking at the old aspects of the old so-called Pelagian, which modern people refer to as Byzantium Empire, now consolidated by what into became the Turkish Empire. So we're looking at kind of like that. That's why Turkey is going through all the things that they're going through, based upon them breaking away from the old empires and coming into the secular world. But to do that, they had to give up their national headdress, which is the fez and all of that. And the person that opted them to do that was a guy in history they refer to as the Ataturk, who actually wasn't even Turkish. He actually was Greek, born on the island of Cyprus, who after the Battle of Gallipoli, they wound up putting him in power, and then he was the one who abolished the fez for them. So that's why they all kind of like messed up too. But in Turkey, you have a whole what they refer to as Afro-Turkish community, right? That once and had their own language, but after the rise of what we refer to as the industrialization of white supremacy, that language and who they were as an individual people got absorbed by everybody that now assimilated their culture and then gave it back to them. So now they don't speak their native language, they speak Turkish. But Kurdish people speak Kurd. You know what I'm saying? And certain other, the people in the Kingdom of Morocco today, they're speaking French, they're speaking elements of Shul, they're speaking, what else? Arabic, you know? But nobody's speaking ancient Maghreb, nobody's speaking the Punic Latin that we were speaking at the time that the North Africans went up into Spain and did what we did. You understand? So what I'm showing you is that what you're seeing in terms of the rise of this so-called regime, this regime is based on a white nationalist overview, to the point where they openly appointed white nationalists now. It used to be, they used to keep them in the closet. Like when Obama was in, one of his great advisors was one of the grand cyclops of the old KKK. And this was a dude that was his advisor from when he was started in politics. You dig what I'm saying? So this is always going down. You dig? But within their system, they're at war between, like I said, the order of death and the order of eagles. So Trump being an eagle, he's now trying to act as the raptor and kind of like do mad stuff before they do something to him. You see what I'm saying? It's like, you know, like when your parents tell you to be in at a certain time and then you don't come in on time, so you like, whatever, I'm gonna just stay out as long as I want and then face the consequences when I get home. That's what's happening with him right now. You dig what I'm saying? So he's exerting. So when people say, oh, he can't do this, he can't do that, you got to understand the United States is a corporation based on military acquisition, militaristic acquisition. So that militaristic acquisition is based upon the acquisition of people's nationalities and then the consolidation of that into a fiscal state, which is now the ability for them to charge you for being a so-called citizen of the United States, which is really just human capital, which is really just a form of slavery. So everybody's under that. Even the people who's running this, what they say is running this, these people, whatever you want to call them, all of these people answer to somebody. You understand what I'm saying? Nobody is so sovereign on this planet that they not breathing. You know what I'm saying? So everything is subject to something else. It's the point whether or not you are subject of or subject to. There's two differences. So this position, right, subject of something, right? So let's say the Moors, they said that the Moors in the treaty, the Moors were subjects of a foreign power. Well, actually, in the War Department breakdown of what the United States is, in the manual they put out in 1934, they said that a United States citizen, an American citizen is anybody who was a subject of a foreign power prior to the establishment of the colonies. So the only foreign power that was really popping over here prior to the colonies, according to the layman, was the British, right? But now we're understanding that the British was really the cloak face for the Vatican, and the Vatican was really the cloak face for the Moorish Empire that they had usurped, right, to be able to empower the British to then be able to establish a system based on Jesuit control of Moors. That's where the black codes of France came from, and this is where they had so-called missionaries spreading this. So this whole idea of what we understand as white supremacy developed between the years of 1492 and blossomed by 1791. So all of us are not what we originally said we was, based upon them creating these substandard ways of living in a land that was never theirs. So how did they get the chance to do that? How did they do that? They do that, my notes, they do that because they have exerted what they refer to as plenary power. Islam, how y'all doing? Plenary power, right? So in the United States constitutional law, it says that plenary power is the power that has been granted to a body or a person in absolute terms, with no review of or limitations upon the exercise of that power. The assignment of plenary power to one body divests all other bodies from the right to exercise that power, where not otherwise entitled. So plenary powers are not subject to, see what I said? You could be a subject of, but not a subject to. So plenary powers are not subject to, which means they're not under. When you're a subject of, that means you're coming in the name of to administer whatever. So the plenary power that the United States is wielding, right, is coming from this imaginary source of the so-called constitution or the framework of government, right, that they have stepped into. But what they are not telling you is that that is only one aspect of the government that's active. The other aspect of the government, which is the perpetual republic, right, or the Societas Republicae Americae, right, or the Confederate of America, which is the consolidation of all of the indigenous people of North Central South America who contributed to all of the records now that are in all of these different languages, gathered up by Thomas Jefferson and Monticello, gathered up by all of the Indian killers like Thomas Theodore Roosevelt and the rest of these people during the Western expansion after the so-called Wounded Knee. So you have all of these different agencies that have a divested interest in exerting a certain degree of plenary power without judicial review. But that violates the very act that put them in power to have this. See, what they did was they created their own version of a citizen in what they called the Act of Congress of 17 something, but it was the Act of the District of Columbia that allowed the District of Columbia to establish citizens for itself. That means that in order for the District of Columbia to do that, there were already citizens that existed that were under or a part or subjects of a foreign power that they had no jurisdiction over. So the only way they could extend that jurisdiction over these people was to get them to give up what national character they had, right, that was native to this land, and adopt the European version of their own law that was now being fed back to them by these so-called colonial powers. So what you're seeing Trump and them do today is also based on, let me get the other thing. This also comes from what is referred to as, he is acting as what is called a plenipotentiary, right? Plenipotentiary, a plenipotentiary, right? Which is coming from the Latin term, which means plenus potus, right? Which is, plenus potens, which basically means very powerful, right? In a noun, it refers to a person who has full powers, right? But in a particular, the term commonly refers to a diplomat who was fully authorized to represent a government as a prerogative, meaning an ambassador, right? Somebody who can put forth an edict, a consul. So that also represents anybody who is entitled to do that. That's why you, as a Moorish American, right, are entitled as a head of your state, which is the perpetual state of Morocco that you exist in, based upon the ecclesiastical districts that were that you were subject of prior to the establishment of the current de facto system. Therefore, you were never a citizen of the United States. You were never a Negro. You were never a slave. You were never any of these things that they told you. But you had to be that in order for them to create the industry of capitalism. And capitalism is based on the rich and the poor. The poor aspire to be rich. The rich aspire not to be poor. So it creates a dichotomy between the society where people are willing to slave themselves out for crumbs, just so that way they don't have to go back and actually work in their own country and build their own people up based on their own national character, because their nationality and their national character has been devalued by the same people they're going to get more money. So it used to be up until they said 2000, 2003, people were coming here from other countries and they represented the entire educational sector. So the whole sector of science, technological revolutions, things like that, all of those are coming from foreign exchange students. You understand? The American school system is totally de facto. It's totally corrupt. It's totally there to turn the people into human capital, to make them as stupid as possible, because it's based on the kindergarten system that was created in old Prussia when the Prussian system, when the Prussian people, them dirty Moors, they started getting corrupt and they needed to dummy down their population from the child stage and up. And that was copied by Hitler and them. And then after the war, right, all those good so-called white and black boys went out to die in World War I and War II. You know what they did? They brought all of those Nazis, all of the ones that was doing the killing, that was doing the administrative remedies against individual United States, that was seizing people's social security cards and birth certificates. This is how the Reich was making money. And that became part of the black bag operations that was then put under the OSS, and then they put on the people in CIA, and now here we are. Them people from CIA went into NSA, went into the Jet Propulsion Laboratories, right? So Nazis has been running your country. They've been running it. But white people is cool with it. That's what you got to understand too. White folk know this. There's people who know, who actually got uniforms and all that still in their family, and they keeping it secret, man. The head of Germany, Merkel, she allegedly Hitler's daughter. Look that up. This is like well-known information. So it's not about conspiracies. It's not about none of that. It's about understanding the trend of economics as we are moving towards the devaluation of the United States currency and the United States as a formal superpower, which will be broken up into little fiefdoms. So you're going to have a bunch of different United States warring for which one is the United States. They already remaking the history in the history books. They already printed out history books saying that the Africans came here and that they came to make their life better, and that they came out here to that they weren't forced into labor. That's the new thing. Then they putting it out now. All of the stories that I'm seeing now about the civil rights era and all that, all I'm seeing is all of these stories about all these interracial couples. And I'm saying that to say that there is an agenda to get rid of people that's darker than me. And it's real. And it's being perpetuated by people that's darker than me. You understand what I'm saying? It's a plan. Just like it's a plan. One of the other aspects of white supremacy, everything's about devaluing your own nationality. So if your nationality is also tied into who you are phenotypically, then we got to devalue this as well. So that way you don't feel that this is your land. Who benefits from you leaving here and going to another land of people who have not fully accepted you as a member of their family? What value does that make you? What's going to happen to all your estates and everything here? This is exactly how we got into this problem. So all I'm saying is understand the political trends and the difference between politics and economics, and the difference in how the two intercede through what they refer to as statecraft, right? And that statecraft is also based upon them creating citizens under their plenary power. So just like the Pope has what they refer to as temporal power, right? He gave up that temporal power through the motu proprio and a couple other things. But we didn't need him to do that. But we as Moors are supposed to come together as a group, as a nation, as a people, and actually send representatives, envoys, special Moorish envoys to the Vatican and these peoples, and give them the injunction to let them know that we need the Intercateria rescinded. Why would we do that? Because that is the document that led to the doctrine of discovery. Everything that you see around you is based upon the conquest of the Moorish people, the Moors specifically. So how did they do this? They did this by not telling the Moorish generations of children who and what they were, and separated them from their parents, and then created alternative visions of themselves to be in through terrorism. So now, based on them having a actual KKK member in government, they're about to try to take the KKK off of the terrorist watch list. But that's an act of patriotism in his country. That's what he's supposed to be doing for his people. He's supposed to be banging on somebody that's not of his Aryan race, because that's what them crackers believe. And they believe it more than you believe in the power and the truth that you got within you. Because you have been taught to deny your spirituality. You've been taught to deny and question everything that feels right to you, based upon what somebody said on YouTube, based upon how much likes they get. This is not a career for me. I'm not doing this shit just to like, what, to like, you know what I'm saying? Like, I'm not doing this as a job. Like, this is not a job. This is doing shit on YouTube like that. I mean, there's people that work for themselves to do that, but this is not a career path or career choice. You understand? This is something that Allah put in my heart to do, so I'm striving to do it as best as I can. However, each one of us have that same song, so each one of us is responsible for this if we choose to be down with it. So, when you see this dude start talking about, marginalizing, when they start using terms like that, when they start using terms like reassessing or reevaluating modes of expenditures, this is now them basically opening it up for the fire sale, because China is ready to go. Russia done already annexed Crimea. So what that means is that USC bonds is going up. USC bonds, if you don't know, are actually also on certain markets known as derivatives, but they're also referred to as mortgage-backed securities. Mortgage-backed securities are securities based on sureties. Those sureties are all the people they got in prison. Everybody that's going to school, everybody that got debt, because the new age empires are not built on nationality. They are built on the acquisition and the expelling of debt. So everybody's in debt to somebody, and that's why they're doing things, and that's why humanity is on the downfall, because you can't do anything based on debt. Debt is a constriction. It's an imaginary hold on your life, and they got the whole world on this. So, Moors, the only thing you can really start to do is consolidate your own individual estates, like I've been saying, like these crackers been doing. And when I say crack, I'm not just talking about so-called Caucasian people. I'm talking about anybody that's into cracking up unity, cracking the unity of the people, destroying the fabric. So you got graham crackers, you got Ritz crackers, right? You got saltines. They all the same thing, because they all about exterminating this, because the time is coming and is here where this is the dominant. We are the dominant people on the planet, y'all, whether regards to the murders, the abortions, the killings, the infanticide, the prisons, the homosexuality. It don't matter. We still are the dominant. So what's the holdup? The holdup is that they got the light skin against the dark skin. They got the dark skin against the light skin. They got the Egyptians against this one, and everybody come from the same source. So we can't partake in any real affairs unless we standing under our own too. So I just read you the fact that based upon you being entitled, meaning you have an ill and bay, which is a title of nobility, you are entitled to act as plenipotentiary for the empire, for your own estate, as a Moorish American who happens to be descended from the people who were here for over 75,000 years. But you got to do it properly. There's a way to do this. It's not about a website. It's not about paperwork. It's about knowing who and what you are enough to do that. So if people out here telling you I'm selling them paperwork, that's not true. I don't do that, man. What I do is deal with you one-to-one as a private console to make sure that if you're going to do it, you're going to do it in a manner that's going to benefit you, but it's not going to destroy all of us. You understand what I'm saying? Because each one of us, according to the prophet and the ways of the old ones, we all supposed to declare our own nationality and stand on our own vine and fig tree. So I can't do it for you. I can't file it for you. So if you got Moors telling, oh, well, I'm going to file it for you, and they not actually established, don't have no type of certificate of authority registered with the Department of State, or somebody that says that they're a foreign entity doing business in the name of the temple as in one of the ecclesiastical districts, then they putting you under a 501c3. You might as well just go to church. And in my opinion, the prophet wanted the temple to be the spiritual base for us to coalesce together. But that wasn't the supposed to be the place where the government was supposed to be formed. There's supposed to be a government for the temple. But the temple is vested within us as well. So we have to get that temple right before we can go out and try to get a charter from somebody else that we just meeting on the internet. Come on, man, we got to get right. But again, Moors don't even believe in spirituality no more. They act like because you use words like Allah and you use words like Allah and you use terms like ecclesiastical that I'm talking about, like going to church and all that. When you ever heard me or any real Moor say anything like that? That's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is that spirituality is the essence of what I am first. So if I disacknowledge that to just be physical, then I'm doing exactly what the dirty Moors did before, and that's how they got caught up by selling these Mamelukes and putting them in harems and then bleaching out what they call the human bouquet. But it was okay at the time because their consciousness was dominant. So now I'm in the era where they're trying to remake the history and make it seem like every relationship during Civil War and Jim Crow was interracial. And that's not true. We actually did better when we were segregated from them than from when we was integrated. Because the integration was then based upon them being the model of what we were to aspire to instead of us maintaining our own standard of excellence. You will never be fully accepted by anybody that's not of your own. You can't. They can accept you to a degree, but that acceptance is also based upon how they see you being accepted by your own people and how you revere your own people. That's why whenever I see TV, I see a million different shows every other day on TV. And it'll be a lead character, and both of them will be the same archetype. But the minute that there's a so-called black character in this TV show or the movie, what is it? He got to be with a white woman, she got to be with a white man. And if it is two black people in a movie where they're both the lead archetypes, then what is it? It's about drugs, right? It's about prostitution, somebody's gay, it's a transgender thing. Like, that's not what I grew up understanding black culture to be. So if that's what y'all want to engender that to be based upon y'all little global 2000, you know, Rex 84, whatever the old one was, they was coming up with all these plans to defeminize and destroy men. I'm a man, and that's all I could be. So again, man, start to exercise and understand your own plenary power, and know it when you see it, when they try to exist, when they try to use it, and establish and build up your own estate and become a bona fide ambassador or emissary of the empire, so that way we all can work together to do that. The sister asks how. It starts with you establishing yourself, and that's what I said. And that starts with you declaring who you are, getting your nationality straight, and all of that. How do we do that? Again, I'm not going to give you a step-by-step on this. We're going to build with that. Again, we got to do it like grown people do. And grown people don't talk their business all over the internet. So you want to holler at me, hit me up at houseofl@hotmail.com, and inshallah I can put you in play or in touch with people who can help in that regard. But you got to have the verb within you, and none of this is done by the grace of anything but our collective will, because the divine creed says we're not supposed to put strangers above our own. So again, man, you want to holler at me at houseofl@hotmail.com. This one was called, I think we'll call it plenary power, and start to understand how this power is being exacted, so that way you can counter that with your own decrees and declarations and things like that properly. Okay, next time we'll talk about how to do that. All right, peace.